Well, this is your Sound Out 84 syllabus, the chronology of the life of Jesus Christ, and I'd like you to turn to the first page on the inside. And the first thing you have is a map, because if you're going to study the Gospels, you've got to have a map of where these different things happen so you can see where Jesus traveled, and perhaps to go from Galilee down to Samaria, it's going to take a day and a half or 2 days to make that trip because he didn't have automobiles or airplanes. So travel was a little bit different. So these are all things to consider. Now on that map, straight up is north, just in case you were wondering. And 1 inch is approximately 17 miles, if you need to consider that later on. And this map contains the names of places in the Scriptures, but especially those pertinent places in the Gospels. It doesn't have all the Old Testament locations and some of the other things. Primarily, it's those places in the Gospels. Now you see in the middle, toward the top, where Galilee is, surrounded by that dotted line. See that? About 1/3 of the way down from the top. That's where most of the Gospel records took place, in Galilee, in that area. But down about equidistant from the bottom, 1/3 of the way up, you see the city of Jerusalem. It's sort of off to the left of the word Judea. You have Bethlehem, and above that you have Jerusalem. Jerusalem is where Jesus went for each of the feasts during the year of his ministry. And we're going to see this week that his ministry covered a period of about 1 year, not 3.5 years as is traditionally believed. So if you keep those places in mind, plus you have the other cities and areas, provinces on here that are pertinent. On the next page, it says the ministry of Jesus Christ. Reverend Martindale will go into this in more detail later on, but I want to point out that on the left is our calendar for 27 AD of January, February, March, all the way down through December, and then 28 AD, January through June. But on the right-hand side of the page, you have the Hebrew calendar. They did not use the same calendar we use. They had their own calendar. So the month that corresponded roughly to January, now not exactly, but each year it would vary, and I'll explain that this afternoon. But the first month that corresponded roughly to January was Tebeth, and then Shabbat, and then Adar, then Nisan. Nisan you should all be acquainted with from the foundational class. Nisan is when the Passover took place. And then Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Ab, Elul, Tishri. Tishri you should be acquainted with from Jesus Christ, our promised seed. That month came up because that was his birthday on the 1st of Tishri. And then Markeshvan and Kislev, Tebeth. We start over again, 28 AD. Now, actually, the 1st of January would correspond with the 14th of Tebeth that particular year. So you see, it doesn't line up exactly. Besides, their months had either 29 or 30 days in them. They didn't have 30 or 31 like we have. So it's not going to be an exact one-to-one correspondence. And I'll tell you more about that later on. Then in the middle of the page, you have some of the significant dates and events that happened during his ministry, starting February the 16th in 27 AD with his baptism, down through June the 20th, which is Pentecost in 28 AD. So we'll go to that page a number of times this week. Now, on the next page, the chronology of the life of Jesus Christ. This is the harmony section. And right underneath that title, I'd like you to put, from the accuracy of the Scripture, history, and astronomy. Right underneath the chronology of the life of Jesus Christ. From the accuracy of the Scripture, history, and astronomy. Because we consider all those things when we work the Word. You cannot isolate one thing. Everything has to flow together, like we did in Jesus Christ, our promised seed. Now, this is a complete harmony, a complete chronology of all the gospel records. And they're given in chronological order. All the incidents. So when we say event or incident number 1, we're talking about the very first one on there, which is the introduction. And you see it's in Matthew 1:1, Mark 1:1, Luke 1:1 through 4, and John 1:1 to 18. Those are the introductory sections of the Gospels. Then number 2, event number 2, the royal genealogy of Jesus Christ, is only found in what Gospel? Matthew, but it's not in Mark, Luke, or John. Then the announcement to Zacharias is found in what Gospel? Luke. See how you work this? Follow it through? That's the harmony. Okay, now we have subtitled 8 different sections in this particular harmony. The first one is right underneath your title at the top of this page. See where it says, The Birth and Childhood of Jesus Christ? So you want to put a Roman numeral number 1 there. Now don't put an Arabic numeral 1 like we use, but a Roman numeral 1, it's like a capital I. Put a Roman numeral 1 in front of that. And that's the first section on the birth and childhood of Jesus Christ. You got it? Then you go to the next page. At the very top of that page, the subtitle there is Baptism, Temptations, and First Week of Nisan in 27 A.D. And there you put Roman numeral number 2, which is like 2 capital I's. Roman numeral number 2. The third section is down at the bottom of that same page. You see in the bold-faced letters, Passover to Pentecost in 27 A.D. And there you put Roman numeral number 3. Then, while you're there, I want you to insert some dates. Now, the way I insert things and the normal way to do it, you see where the word Passover is? After the word Passover, since you can't really write anything between there and the word to, I put a little caret, which is a upside down V. Then I can write above it what I want to put in here. And the date I want to put in there is April 10. April 10. Then after the word Pentecost, I want to put another little caret, and above that, in parenthesis, June 1st. Now these dates are in the events that are marked here, but this will give it to you in the subtitle as well, so you know approximately what period of time that covered. And of course it says in 27 A.D. On the next page, right down toward the middle of the page, lower middle, it says the summer of 27 A.D. In front of that, put Roman numeral 4, IV. Roman numeral 4. And behind that, in parentheses, put June 1st to September 19. June 1 to September 19. And of course it says summer of 27 A.D. So it's that year. Now, this summer was a long summer. This goes on for a number of pages. A lot or most of the material in the Gospels transpired during this summer. It was a hot summer in Palestine. So you go to, it says page 6 at the top of the page there. And at the very bottom, you have the next subtitle. The month of Tishri and the royal high priest. Have you found it? All right. In front of that, put Roman numeral 5, which is a V. Roman numeral 5. And behind it, you can put the dates. September 20 - October 19 in 27 A.D. September 20th to October 19th, 27 A.D. And that covers the month of Tishri when these events took place. All right, there's nothing on the next page, so turn to the page following that, page 8, and we come to the winter of 27 and 28 A.D. What are you going to put in front of that? Roman numeral 6, VI. VI, Roman numeral 6, the winter of 27 and 28. And behind that put, in parenthesis, December 13, comma, 27 AD, dash, April 22, comma, 28 AD. December the 13th, 27 AD to April the 22nd, 28 AD. Then at the bottom of that page, it was a short winter. But a lot of things happened there, and there'll be some interesting things on that come up later on. Down at the bottom of the page, Jesus Christ, our Passover, Roman numeral 7, VII. And behind it, in parentheses, April 22-30, comma, 28 AD. April 22 to 30 in 28 AD. All right, on the next page, there's nothing. On page 10, down at the bottom, you have the resurrection appearances. This is the 8th section, a new beginning with the resurrection. And we put Roman numeral 8, which is VIII. And behind it, in parentheses, May 1 dash June 10, comma, 28 AD. May 1st to June the 10th in 28 AD. And that's the 8th and final section of this harmony. Then you'll turn the page and you'll see two charts facing each other. Now these will come in very helpful later on in explaining the ministry of Jesus Christ and why the years 27 and 28 AD were the years of His ministry and not some other year. Over on the left of the first chart, you have Tishri 1, 3 BC. What happened on that date? Jesus Christ was born on the 1st of Tishri, and that's approximately our September, or some years it may correspond with parts of October, see, because their months varied from year to year. But Tishri 1 in 3 BC, as you know, is September the 11th. Now, that's when He was born. So His first year was between Tishri 1 in 3 BC and Tishri 1 in 2 BC. See that?
Walter, I wrote Tishri 1, 3 BC, and then in that line that's there above it, I wrote September the 11th, so I don't forget it.
September 11th. Good idea.
This is your syllabus. You can write in it and make notes on it as we go through the teaching this week. Okay, go on, Walter. It's great.
Okay, so you have every year Tishri 1 to Tishri 1. That was from His birthday to His birthday. So the first year, now they didn't have a 0 year like we do. When you talk about being 1 year old, how old are you? That means your first year is already passed. You're really in your second year. They didn't do that in their culture. When they were 6 months old, they were in their first year, or 1 year old. See? So when Jesus was about 30, meant He was in His 29th year. He hadn't reached His 30th year yet. Therefore, you follow these years down, you'll find out His 29th year was between Tishri 1 in 26 AD, which that year happened to be October the 2nd, and Tishri 1 in 27 AD, which that year happened to be September the 20th. So you see, their months didn't always correspond exactly to ours, and I'll explain that this afternoon. Also, there's a scripture in Luke 3:1 that talks about the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius. Well, he began his reign between Tishri 1 and Tishri 1 in 12 and 13 AD. So his 15th year corresponds with the same year down at the bottom. See how these charts will be useful, and we'll get into that later on. And then on the next page, you have the 46th year of the building of the temple that's explained in John 2:20. Now, religious or sacred matters were not counted from Tishri to Tishri. They were counted from Nisan to Nisan. Nisan is approximately April in our time. You might want to write April on there. Approximately April. It's like we have, our year starts when? January. What about your school year? Oh, so you have a different year. What about your fiscal year? In some businesses, might be June, right? In some businesses, some other month. So we have different years in our system. Well, Nisan was the year for their sacred or religious matters. So the temple was a religious matter. Down at the bottom of the page, that paragraph says, time dealing with sacred matters was counted by years, beginning with the month Nisan. The years of the construction of the temple are an example of a sacred matter. John 2:20 was spoken at Passover in Nisan of the 46th year of the building of the temple. The year 19 BC is determined from dates given by Josephus, who was a first century Judean historian. He's the one that documents for us that the temple started construction between Nisan 1 in 19 BC and Nisan 1 in 18 BC. Therefore, that would be the first year. Then you can count down to the 46th year, which brings us right back to where we've started his ministry at about 30 years of age, which is the 15th year of Tiberius. See how they all line up? So that's the purpose of those, and we'll get into those in more detail later on. Now, on the next page, you have 2 pages on the times of Jesus Christ. This is for this afternoon session, so you don't have to learn to spell all these things while I'm talking up here. This is an outline of what I'm going to cover with space so you can write appropriate notes in here that'll help you to understand these different things. And to understand the Gospels, you've got to understand their culture, their system of dealing with months, and their history and so on. So we'll get into those things this afternoon.